Diana, thank you
Yeah.
for joining us for this Draw This in Your Challenge interview. Congratulations
Thank you.
on winning it. I have your piece up now. I really love it. I like, right off the bat, I will say, like, I love the warmth of it, and not only there's a lot of things that kind of are nostalgic for me as well. I love your color palette sense.
Thank
I
you.
love the character interaction, and like once you kind of incorporate that kind of like character relationship stuff into your illustration, no matter what you're doing, whether it's like a background painting or character painting or storyboard, I think that really makes a difference in terms of like how the viewer feels. I have to, tip my hat off to you on that sense. And then, like I say, I love the color palette too. I love like the kind of warm, even though it's a snow scene, like I love the warm palette, the pinks, the oranges, and the kind of like purple sky and the kind of like bluish trees and that kind of stuff. It feels a little bit unconventional for like a winter scene. So I'm digging it, man.
I don't know if
Go
it's because
ahead.
I come from like a tropical background, but I feel like I'm always
Maybe.
attracted to warm colors. And it's something that I
Right.
almost struggle with, where I have to be like, not everything has to have orange and yellow, like just tone it back and can be blue. But I feel like it just
Yep.
seeps in where everything feels warm to me, especially like emotional moments. It's always like warm colors are really attractive to me. So I use those a
Got it.
lot.
So why don't you tell everyone where you're from, Dana?
Oh, sure. So I was born in Cuba and I moved to Florida at the age of 8. And yeah, I lived in Florida for all my life, except just recently I moved to Utah. So
Nice. Okay, so that's a perfect melding of like both environments and both like both environments and both feelings of like you're coming from Florida, you moved to Utah, and you said first time you've seen snow,
second
or
time.
experience second time you've experienced snow there in Utah. Okay, so you're
Yeah.
naturally like bringing those like warm tropical colors like into the snowy frigid
And
tundra.
I think I
uh,
did that piece right after moving too. So it was the perfect combination of
I
I
like
just left a
it.
hot place and I just moved to a really cold place with snow. And it's
Got
only my
it.
second time aside from Norway where I've seen snow. And I'm like, oh wow. Like it's nice too, because you expect like, oh, snow, you're gonna be cold, but you're bundled up so you feel warm, and then you're having things that are warm like hot cocoa. And so yeah, I don't know, that piece came at just the right time, I think.
Did you kind of feel like you're kind of pulling from like a personal experience that was nostalgic for you, or when you were drawing it and drawing the characters, were you pulling on any sort of life experiences?
It
You
was
feeling?
definitely, I think, based on feelings of, I have a lot of cousins and I'm the oldest girl cousin, but I'm
Oh,
still close
really?
enough in age to the rest of them that it feels almost like we're all siblings when we're together. So I actually had it as like 3 siblings, and then the oldest one is the one that has a little girl on his shoulders, and kind of that interaction where you're all being silly, but to different levels. And there's obviously like different personalities, like the
Yeah.
boy that's off to the right side that's taking it more seriously, and he's kind of freaking out like,
Mm-hmm.
oh no, the light's got to
Mm-hmm.
be perfect. That's me. I'm the perfectionist. That's like, oh
Oh,
no, you're gonna
really?
mess up the snowman. Yeah. And then some of my younger cousins are like, woo, whatever, let's put the carrot on the
Uh-huh.
snowman. So
Uh-huh.
trying to
Th
capture that like different variety of family interactions within one family.
with this piece, and I'm not sure if you kind of like with your illustrations or your artwork, if you kind of experiment with every single piece, or what is how do you usually go about like from the beginning, like starting an illustration, like what is your thought process all the way to the like polish and finish?
I feel like it's really anticlimactic because for some reason I work in such a variety of styles, but this style in particular is the one that just like comes out of me. Like right away, I'm like, oh, I know what colors I want, or I know what scene I want. And then the colors just come as I'm creating the composition. But in terms of a draw this in your own style challenge,
Mm-hmm.
I do put a little bit more thought into it because I don't want it to feel like a copy and paste entry. So I
Mm-hmm.
look at the original and I say, like, what do I want to take from this? And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's the composition, sometimes it's the colors, and then I'll do my own
Mm-hmm.
spin on it. For this
Mm-hmm.
one, it was definitely, I like the composition of the character interaction. I really like capturing like interactions between people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I took from this one. And I started there. I kind of created the composition, made sure the characters were in a similar pose. And then I was like, okay, but now these characters are mine, and based on my experiences, what do I want to put into them? So then I did a couple of character sketches trying to figure out poses. You know, the girl is more like woo and wee, and the boy is
Yeah,
more nervous, is a bit more scrunched up. So exploring
I
those
like it.
emotions in the poses.
I
And
like it.
then yeah, I start black and white just to like create some value structure, and then
Mm-hmm.
I just put it to the side and then start coloring. And the colors for this one came out pretty quickly because again, it was like that warm pink feeling of a happy
Mm-hmm.
family moment. Even though there's coolness outside, it's not intrusive, it's there, but it's mostly
Mm-hmm.
about the pink happy feeling.
Mm-hmm. Blocking out phase in black and white and then introduce color later, or are you juggling that right when the paint starts after you get the drawing?
I think right after I get the drawing, I have the little
Yeah,
grayscale on the side, but
yeah,
I mostly only use it as reference. I usually
yeah.
just start putting in the colors and then just turn them black and white every once in a while to check that I'm following my value. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't think about it too much. It's more to establish like, oh, I want a deeper color in the front, or I want the shadows in the back, and just
Yeah.
roughing.
That sounded like that was the most fun thing to you, is figuring out the color palette. Like what are some of the things on this piece, but also maybe in general of just kind of creating art? What do you kind of find the most challenging? Number one, and number two, like what's the most like fun? I'm assuming the color aspect and how that makes up, the viewer feel, but like what's a challenging part that you always struggle with every time you're kind of doing a piece of art?
So for me, most challenging is a white piece of paper. That is terrifying to me. Like I would rather start drawing something that I don't want to draw than to start on a white piece of paper, because at least like,
Yeah.
and like my sketchbooks aren't pretty at all. Like I never put them in sketchbook shows or anything. They're super
Mm,
scrawly, messy sketches, but I almost feel like I work my sketches like I work clay, where I put down a bunch of lines until I find the line that I want to follow, and then I go with that.
I
But I
like it.
never erase the other lines. And so it's like if I have a bunch of jumbled stuff in front of me, I can sift through it and find what I want to do. But if
Yep.
it's just blank, like I don't know, it's like paralysis. Like I have to be art director and designer and editor. But if I have
Yep.
something to start with, then I just start editing it. And then once I've edited, then I art direct it. And then I'm like, okay, now I can design it. It's like kind of a backwards process. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it's not backwards at all, and it does make sense to me, 100%, because like that white blank page, or just getting it started, is the hardest part. Getting momentum to start. I don't know if you were like this as well, but like I remember like studying like animation drawings and all that kind of stuff. I kind of felt like I felt the pressure of like my reps having to be beautiful, and so I'm like now, like I'm like my roughs are not beautiful. And you see like some people's rough sketches, and you're like, oh my god, I can see it already. Beautiful draftsmanship.
Especially art
My,
school, it's very much like you get praise. There's sketchbook shows and this and that, and people show off their sketchbooks, and it became like an intimidating thing to me, where I didn't want to keep a sketchbook because the scrawly way I drew wasn't admired, or
yeah,
it just wasn't positive. So I was like, well,
it,
better not show it or not do it. So then I finally,
right.
like, once I was out of that environment, I realized like, if this helps me get to the end goal, then this is about me and my process. It doesn't really matter like if it's pretty to other people. But yeah, it was
Yes.
intimidating.
Yes. That's actually a good point, and I'm glad you brought that up too, of just kind of like knowing your audience, of just kind of like, okay, well, if you're going to show your initial rough ideas to someone that's well versed in it, maybe who does the exact same thing as you, and they can kind of make the mental leap of like, I see where you're going for here, versus like an executive or a client or someone that's they're not coming from an art background. You have to do your due diligence to kind of take that extra step to make it a little more presentable. And that's just the reality of things. I mean, like, you're not only presenting to artists, you're also presenting to um everybody, your mom. I mean, like, can you show your mom and be like, mom, what do you think about this? And she's like, what's happening?
Yeah,
You
I
have
viewed it very much as like your best friend can probably finish your sentences, but maybe you don't want like a coworker to try to finish your sentences. So clear it up for them so they don't have to finish your sentences, or else there's misunderstandings. That's how I view the sketches. I'll have an art director tell me that they want something to feel nostalgic. And then I'm put in the awkward position where I have to be like, well, I'm 30 years your junior, and I was born in Cuba and you were born in the US. Like, my nostalgic and your nostalgic are very different. So then I try to
hmm
clarify with like Do you want a like a hard line? Do you want a swooping? So like more visual rather than like
Mm-hmm.
subjective, because then you just go in circles around each other. In so many industries that each time you kind of have to adjust yourself to each market and client. So between theme parks and like decorative stands for crafting, there's similarities, but there's also very big differences. And I've also done freelance work for gaming and animation, and there's differences between that and theme parks. So it's just a little bit of rerouting your design process and the way you think for each new thing.
Is that a challenge for you to reroute that process mentally?
I really enjoy it. I
Oh, do you?
actually, yeah. I
Well
think it's
done.
just because there's so much going on in my head that it gets very jumpy. So when I get to work on a variety of different styles or assignments, or the more that I get to switch, it's not that I get bored, it's that it keeps me more mentally stimulated. And the more
Mm,
stimulated I am, the better my designs come out. So I feel like I get
mm.
very stagnant if I'm in one thing for too long. And I really enjoy working like in a variety of industries for that reason.
Whoa, I kind of, you're like my kindred spirit in that way. Like I
Yeah.
feel like every 5 years I get uh like itchy feet or whatever the saying
Yeah.
is of like if I do something for more than a few years, I'm just kind of like I've done this before. I need to do something else, and that happens all the time. So I can relate to that. And sometimes the change is like scary,
Yeah.
but it's exciting. I mean, the fact that you're not comfortable, and the fact that you're not kind of like doing this same thing day in and day out and just kind of on autopilot. I mean, I like that. I like that kind of like being placed in a position where you don't know anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
And
it keeps you fresh. It keeps you like applying different rules or new rules to a different thing. And so it's like I'll apply animation stuff that I've learned onto my children's book work, and that will
mm,
change it a little bit and make it more interesting than it was. Or I'll apply
mhm,
my children's book knowledge of what makes for a cute face and the ratio of like where the face and the eyes should lay to
yep,
a cute decorative stamp for like a baby pattern,
i-
and then that will make it better.
interesting.
So it's like a circle where if you let it, it feeds into each other in a really positive way, or at least in the way my brain it works. It's a really positive experience for me.
Man, I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, I can relate to that 100%. Having said all that, like bringing all of the ingredients of the recipe together, like you're talking about the drawing, the character relationship, the color and ratios and all that kind of stuff. Do you kind of think about it when you're creating this piece and when you're creating art in general of like what you want the audience to feel and take away from that?
Yeah, I definitely try to focus on shapes and color in terms of what I want the audience to feel. The composition, and obviously I want the character interactions to match with the feeling that I'm giving the audience, but in terms of like spiky shapes versus round shapes and color, those are my two main focuses when I want to like convey a certain emotion or feeling to the audience. It's definitely like I tended towards more spiky compositions, and I started to realize, well, you enjoy them, but it's reading this way to other people. And then I realized like, okay, again, that pre-K training, round your corners, make things softer, more rounded, more gentle sloping. And then, yeah, the color is usually where I go to for like that emotional appeal.
Got it. Yeah, that's awesome. I 100%. I mean, like for anyone listening to this, like those are things that you have to consider working as a professional artist all the time, right, Diana? Of just kind of like this, like exactly the terms that you were just saying, like rounded corners, sloping shapes, have. I mean, they might. I mean, maybe to non-artists that might seem arbitrary, but they matter, right?
Yeah.
They matter.
And
Yeah.
it's not that easy, or I mean, maybe I feel like to some of my friends that I studied art with, it came to them really easy, but I don't know if I'm just hard-headed or if I'm just a person that needs to learn through trial and error. But it took me a long time and working in a bunch of different markets and a bunch of different jobs to fine tune it and be able to adjust it every single time, because it's almost something you don't notice you're doing, and once you do it wrong enough times you start catching yourself and you're like, oh, okay, I see what's happening here, and you start like auto correcting the behavior. And then yeah, it's a lot easier. The more you fail, the more you learn, and the more you learn, the faster that you recover the next time. I
I
feel.
love that. Yeah, I love that. That speaks to your experience, and it kind of speaks to your maturity as an artist, because when you come out of school, I remember feeling this way of like, I draw the way I want to draw, and like, kind of like, I will not change for anyone because my drawing style has been honed in the last 2, 3 years, and everyone will love it. But like, yeah, as a working artist, you get to deal with different clients. You do it a couple years, and you see people's reactions to the work that you put out there. If you care, then you will listen, and you will take notes, and you'll be like, oh, okay. And maybe not a lot of clients will speak the artist language, but to get to learn the note beyond the note, of just kind of like, okay, well, they're feeling this way. They're feeling, it's like what you said, maybe it feels too threatening. Maybe it is too spiky, or maybe it feels too dangerous. Maybe the corners are too angular. Maybe I should round them off a little bit. And what did you say? Like sloping, like
Yeah.
gentle
So
slopes or
like
whatever.
if a slope is too severe, it might look like, oh, danger, like you might fall. But if it's gentle enough, it feels more like a hug or like a scooping motion, like little things, I guess. Yeah, no, it goes into like what you were saying about when you graduate and you're like, I draw this way and this is the way I draw. I was very much like that, but for me, it was more of a fear of failing. Like I have to draw this way because this is the way I know how to draw. And if I try something new, it might fail. And then my perfectionist brain was like, oh, end of the world, oh no, failure. And then once you've worked for a long time, you realize you're gonna fail a bunch of times. It's not the end of the world. You
Oh
just,
yeah.
yeah, you just course correct and you keep going. But I feel like when you're younger, when you're a new graduate, you're just like, oh my God, end of the world. At least that's how it
And
was for me. So
like, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I felt the same way when I was in school. Like I didn't want to fail. And I have a lot of friends still, that like would try out for things because they don't want to fail. Can you speak to that a little bit, of what you were talking about, of just like the fear of failure, and then when you actually kind of get out there, it happens all the time.
yeah. So like for the picture book thing, I love children's books and I really wanted to get into that market, but I just like I couldn't figure out the style. And after getting a couple of rejections, like reaching out for an agent, I was like, oh, I guess this just isn't for me. And I went into what came easily, which was like more visual development and theme parks. And it was like, well, I'm accepted in this, so I'm not gonna try. I don't have to try as much here. Like I'm welcomed and accepted here. And that's
Mm,
fine, but you can get a little stagnant and you stop growing. And I kind of cut off the side of me that wanted to work on picture books. And that just ended up being detrimental to me because it's a part of me. It's still something I want to do. And I was just ignoring it. So after
mhm.
like I gained more confidence working and I realized like, hey, I failed on this and it wasn't the end of the world. I failed on that, it wasn't the end of the world. Maybe I should try picture books again. And then I started working on it. And now when I failed at that, it wasn't such a big deal. And I was able to like keep going. And now I'm like happily pursuing it and I'm not like as scared of it. And I feel like in general, all of my art styles have gotten more flexible, more confident, more, well, just my personal confidence that if someone says no, I'm like, okay, moving on, next thing.
Mhm.
Like it's not keeping me from doing things I want to do or things I love anymore.
Yeah, and it just comes from going through the failing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, like, it would be the worst thing in the world if you didn't try anything because of fear of failure, versus just kind of like doing it, failing a ton, and then kind of like, I don't know what your experience is. I kind of got used to it. I mean,
Yeah.
like applying into different studios and getting rejections all the time. And it hurts every time. It doesn't get easier, but like you at least you've gone through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think it's also
um
like the more you rip off a band-aid, the less it hurts over time.
I like it.
So it's like the skin's a little numb or it's a little tougher and like it stings a
Yeah.
little, but like you're used to it and you know that you'll get over it.
Mhm.
And I think also like the more that you spread your interest, because if it's like, this is the only thing I love, this is the only thing I can do, and then you get rejected in that, it's world ending. It's like you were rejected for the only thing that you know and love. But if you have a
Mhm.
bunch of different interests, then when one thing goes wrong, you can still fall back on other interests and other positives and like
Mhm.
maybe pursue those until you heal from the wounds of the last one and you're ready to go back into the battle and try again. What makes a professional artist is being able to understand different clients and being able to be rejected over and over and over and not take it like emotionally, like view it as like a, okay, why did I fail? Take the constructive feedback from that, and then not take any of the emotional, like, this is about you, this is about your work, you
Mm-hmm.
failed as a person,
Mm-hmm.
which I feel like every artist has.
Yeah.
But yeah, like maybe you start off with soft rejections, like smaller ones, and you build up to big ones until you get used to it. But it's very much for artists that aren't used to it, I feel like they get discouraged really quickly and then they just give up on it. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, yeah, it can be harsh, but I don't know, there's so many rejections in the art field that you just kind of get used to it.
Yeah, and you get used to it, and they never go away. I mean, like they'll happen all the time. And like there are a few things, like Diana, to your point, of just kind of like as you make your way, anyone who's watching, of like as you make your way as a professional artist, there are things that are going to always be like there on your shoulder. Rejection is always going to be there. Imposter syndrome is always going to be there. Kind of like that kind of feeling that you're not good enough is always going to be there. But that's the kind of stuff that, I mean, like if you can manage it, and I it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but like if you can manage it and learn to kind of in some way, weird way, embrace it, then you'll come out the other side like learning something new, or being a more well-rounded artist, or having a thicker skin at the other side, or all that kind of stuff. It just never goes away. That kind of the insecurity there is like, I don't know what I'm doing, guys. That does not go away. I thought it would when I was a student. When I'm a professional, I'll know my way around the table, and it doesn't go away. You constantly feel, I felt that like earlier today, and I've been doing it forever. So like it just never goes away. So as the sooner you could come to terms with something like that, of just kind of like rejection, it's always going to be part of the equation, and it's nothing personal,
Yeah.
and it's nothing on you.
Yeah, and
But
I don't want to sound overconfident either. Like again, it still hits me all the time. Like
sure.
I have been trying to get into background painting for the last 3.5 years in animation. And every time I
Mm,
get a portfolio review, everyone's like, yeah, you can get a job with this. And I'm like, but I haven't. So something must be missing. And then I rework the portfolio. Then I get another critique. And it's like, no, this portfolio is good to go. Like, okay. And then recruiters reach out to me, but their teams never like pick me. And I'm like, okay, something's missing. And it's, yeah, it's like a building frustration. But instead of like getting frustrated and shutting down during those moments, which, I used to do, I just learned how to step back from that. I instead refocus, like, okay, I'm going to go work on my picture book for now. And then that makes me really happy and I get some positive feelings. And then now that I'm re-energized, I try background painting again, or I focus again on my picture books. It's just about, you're going to get frustrated and you're going to get sad. That's not a bad thing. It just happens. And then it's just about how you like refocus that attention into something positive. Because at least for me, if I don't refocus it, then I get stuck. And that's like the worst, where you're just in a hole of negativity and then you lose motivation and you don't want to do anything. And so, yeah, so just to keep me from going into that place, I just try to refocus on something positive. And then when I have the energy, I circle back to the thing that I was struggling with.
I love that. And I can relate to that too. This is a rise up animation thing. Like, you like met with a few artists, like colleagues or like mentors or other like mentees in rise up animation, and what has your experience been like so far?
I have a couple of mentee friends and I've had like 2 or 3 mentors, and everyone's been super nice, super helpful, reaching out past even the point that a mentor, I guess, should. Like there's always that initial connection and they help you, but I've had them check in months afterwards, and it just feels so genuine, because this process is definitely, when you need mentorship and you need help, it's not like a, okay, thank you for the 1 hour call, we're done here. Like there's always follow-up questions, there's always
Right.
struggles afterwards, and like growing, the more you learn, the more questions you have, and then you wonder if you can reach out again. You don't want to be rude. So yeah, just all the mentors that have volunteered their time, it's been super helpful to me, and the community has been super supportive and nice. And I really enjoy that, like people voice their frustrations, but it never gets like we should all quit and there's no point to this. And people complain, they
Uh-huh.
get it out of their system and they're like, hey, did you check out this cool thing? Or like, oh, I have an idea for the color scheme for your next piece. Or yeah, and then it just turns back into something positive, and that's been really, really enjoyable.
That's very cool. That's very cool. That's indicative of the industry at large. I won't say that the industry is like perfect, and I'm not going to say it's all Pollyanna and rainbows and kind of like, all happy all the time. But there's the good and the bad, right? And so there's the you'll run into like all kinds of artists, and no one's wrong, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But it just kind of it just kind of, hopefully you kind of see like who you want to surround yourself with, right? There's a lot of people in animation that are super positive and realistic about what's going on, and are, I guess, kind of like aware of the things that should be improved, right? But like every day you kind of come in and go to work or go to the lunch table, it's up to you to bring kind of like a positive spin on things, or like a positive take on things. And a positive take can even be like listening to someone's gripes and taking that in stride. And this, I mean, like you've worked in the industry and industries for a long time. But I kind of feel like, with any industry, especially animation, I mean, I kind of feel like we're all artists and we're all kind of like going through our own thing. But like what'll help your mental health, like in the long run, is just kind of like getting up in the morning and just kind of saying, okay, well, what is something positive I could do for somebody, or whether it's mentoring somebody or listening to them, or kind of like anything, paying it forward, like what you've learned in your experience in theme parks and that kind of stuff. And,
Yeah,
and
I
you
agree. When I
haven't,
have my sad days, I definitely tell myself like, oh, I'm so sad I didn't get to work on Moana, or I didn't get to work on Encanto. And then I'm like,
yeah,
well, then I would have never like designed Nintendo Land for Japan. I would have never designed toys for Coco Melon. I would have never gone to Utah and seen majestic mountains and snow and gotten to work on decorative stamps. So am I really like, I'm sad it didn't happen, but I don't regret the path I took. So I think that's where I try to go whenever I get sad about it. Like, I don't regret where I'm at, so I must be doing okay.
listen, I've felt that way a lot of times, and there will be, you have the right mentality, because there will be eventually, if this is something that is continually on your radar in the future, there will be something greater than your Moana and Encanto. There will be something greater, and we just don't know.
I think the summary was Rise Up has taught me to like, just keep going. It's okay. Like, you'll get there. Just keep going and it's fine and you'll be fine. So that's what it taught me.
That's awesome. Thank you for saying that, and that's a great way to close out. And so thank you for being a part of this. Congratulations again. And it's a pleasure talking to you. And so, yeah, so everybody, thank you for watching this.
Yeah, pretty much. Thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, it was my pleasure too. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It was great meeting you.
Same here. Bye, Bobby.